What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hangover. I'm Daniel, alongside with me is Shannon White, as always. Shannon, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm just having a great day and excited to be here.
Yeah, this is one of those good hangovers.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically this show comes, the morning after the game. But since the game was on Saturday, we had a prolonged hangover, and perhaps maybe a little bit of extra partying, given the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers looked pretty dominant, especially the starters. Um, First and foremost, what were your first impressions of the game as you watched it?
Well, this week I got to watch it live. I broke down and I got that NFL Plus, even though it's a pain in the rear to do, but I got it. So because I wanted to watch it because this is your warm up game.
Yeah.
This is game number 2, which a lot of the starters won't get a lot of playing time next week, if any. So I said I would definitely want to watch starters versus starters for the Bills. So I was able to watch it, and it just man, it's like before you could even take a breath, it was 14-0. It was incredible. And I'm like, you're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. They're going out there and they're scoring so fast. I'm wanting to see the offensive line. I want to be able to break down the starting offensive line and see how they're doing. Can they impose their will on the line of scrimmage and be dominant on the line of scrimmage? Because that's what Andy Weidl said they want to do this year.
Right.
But they scored so freaking fast. And then it's like, okay, starters out. We don't have any idea. I don't know if the offensive line is improved a lot. I don't know if they can establish a running game with Najee Harris. Najee Harris has touched the ball twice. Well, he did catch one where he lost a yard in the first game. But what I'm saying is now you have people saying, oh, we got to replace Najee Harris with Jaylen Warren. Well, Jaylen Warren touched the ball one time, went 62 yards. We still don't know what this offensive line in this running game is going to look like. So maybe they'll get a little bit of playing time and be able to show something Thursday against the Falcons, because they haven't got any work together because they're only in there for 2 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. They haven't really, that was the one thing that I took away from the game. I was super excited about everything, especially the splash plays that were involved. Mm-hmm. And we'll go into the the minutia of the game, a little bit later in the show. But the only thing that I felt was missing, I would have liked to have seen the offense go out there one more drive and have an extended real 8, 9, 10, 12 play drive down the field. I felt like that was the only thing that was missing. But beggars can't be choosers. This was a team that scored on the running game and had a pass, down the seam in the middle of the field to a tight end for a touchdown, over 20 yards. Those were things that I would say were, the Steelers' kryptonite last season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it is really good to see this team progress, and where perhaps their weaknesses were, throwing in the middle, throwing over linebackers, but before the safeties to those tight ends.
Yeah.
Well, now you got Darnell Washington there. You have Connor Hayward, who, in my opinion, also had a pretty good game again. His hands are dependable. That middle of the field seam, where it once was a weakness, could be a strength. And if that ends up being the case, this is going to be a very well-rounded team, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, there's been a lot of, chatter going back and forth, Najee Harris versus Jaylen Warren, who should be RB1. What are your thoughts on the running back room as it sits today, with Najee as RB1, Jaylen Warren as RB2?
Well, I've said it in a couple of articles in the discussion threads and in my article today, the Stiller Stock Report article. You can check that out, of course, on Still Curtain Network. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous discussion. The Steelers fans should be thankful and that we're blessed to have two guys that have the quality and the talent that Harris and Warren have. They're smash and dash. I mean, you've got power. You've got that. People forget Najee's stiff arm. when he plants guys. They have not seen him run against the caliber of offensive line I think they have this year. And Warren is that great change of pace guy, and he's a low center of gravity. He's got great contact balance. He comes in, and if they've been pounding on Harris, he's going to leave him in the dust. We see his long speed. That's the first time he's really got to show it. And that guy had an angle on him, and I thought he's going to get him. And he couldn't. So Warren showed his explosiveness. But there's a reason that Harris was the first-round draft pick and Warren was undrafted free agent. Warren has overcome his status when he began his NFL career. Harris that first year, he was asked to do the impossible, and he did it to the best of his ability without complaining. This year, we're going to see the opportunity, if healthy, for him to run behind an NFL caliber offensive line. And I'm very excited about that. And them working him back into the passing game. They kind of forgot about him in the passing game, except around the goal line last year. You think about a lot of Pickett's few touchdown passes actually went to Harris because Harris was really effective around the goal line. But I'd like to see him work him in more. I don't know if anybody's paying attention, but in the preseason, the Steelers are setting up some screens. The one they had Saturday to McFarland was really beautiful. It was well blocked. It was well timed. That's something the Steelers haven't been able to do for years. Is a good screen since Bell. So I think we're going to see the screen game come back. There's just so many weapons. But as far as Najee and Warren, it's a ridiculous discussion. Harris is the starter. He's going to be the bell cow, the workhorse. And Warren will be able to come in and continue to be explosive change of pace guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, what Jaylen Warren has done is earned himself more reps, right? He has taken over basically the third down running back duties, in my opinion. He's done great at pass blocking. He's done great at, the times where he's had to catch the ball and get open in open field. And, like I said, I think we're going to see more of a maybe 60-40, ratio with 60% of the ball going to Najee Harris, and I think it's going to be situational football, in a game where, the Steelers want to like take control and just grind out the clock. I see a lot of Najee Harris. You know what I'm saying? And if it's a game
where, a great problem to have.
Oh, I agree.
I agree. This like last year, the Cowboys had Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And they had like the best rushing attack in the NFL. And I could see that potential with Harris and Warren. And you actually have two guys with contrasting styles. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100% that it is absolutely a good thing. And I think you kind of need that in today's NFL. You need a committee. I don't think it worked for the Steelers, as far as overall when they overworked Le'Veon Bell. When the Steelers needed him at the most, he wasn't available, right?
They should have used D'Angelo Williams more back then. And I believe that it would have made Bell even more effective and, cut down on some of that wear and tear. I think Tomlin learned the error of his ways. And I think we'll see more of a combination backfield, a committee this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I did want to say one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
To Pittsburgh Toddy, 86, was able to see when I was on the touchdown on under on Friday, they lost a family member, lost her brother, and I just wanted her to know that I'm still praying. The family is in my thoughts and prayers, and great to see them here today.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I mean, our condolences. But yeah, when it comes to that, I even think that, Anthony McFarland is going to be a guy that gets the ball a handful of times. He's an even more dynamic, home run hitter if he doesn't trip over himself. He had a moment where he was getting a big run and try to juke and he ended up going to the ground. And I think that was one of the things that I had criticized about him. I was like, man, this guy is like a very fast Ryan Switzer. He's just going to move back and forth really, really quick and then fall down. And, this year he's been doing a lot better, but he fell down again.
He did. He did it again.
Yeah, he did it again. He juked and fell down, but at least it was after he got the first down.
Yeah.
And so, it's a little bit of grace. It's a little bit of a step in the right direction, but I do think that he's going to be RB3. But what is your thoughts on using like McFarland in the goal line situation?
Well, they only did that because they had already took Harris and Warren out, because there's no way they would have tried to use McFarland. That's something I wanted to talk about today. People are really excited about McFarland, and I'm excited that he can be useful as a third down receiver and option out of the backfield. He's very fast. He's hard to cover, but he's still limited as a runner. His vision is poor. His balance is not good. He trips over his own feet when he gets trying to go too fast. Honestly, Xavier Valade, who they just picked up, I think if he'd had a full camp, he would have knocked McFarland or had a chance to challenge McFarland for the running back 3. I do not want to see McFarland, if one of the first 2 guys gets injured, I do not want to see McFarland have to be counted on, because he is not really strong between the tackles. If you look at his runs this preseason, he was able to bounce that 1 touchdown outside because he was of his speed, and he just outrun the corner to the end zone. All of his other runs in the interior, even on outside zone, he has no power. He's averaging 2 yards a carry. And I understand it's with a second string and third string offensive line, but somewhere in there, he needs to break something and show that he is capable. Now, if you watch the same guy, Anthony McFarland, on that screen pass Saturday, he caught the screen. He allowed the 2 blockers to clear in front of him, clear out of running lane, then he hit it at full speed before he stumbled on his own feet and tripped.
Yeah.
So I'm not as excited about McFarland as running back 3 as a lot of people, because I think he has some value, but his kick return value is very minuscule. He is not a good kick returner. It has to be blocked perfect. You have to give him a seam because he's not elusive.
Right.
He's fast in a straight line. So actually, I would love to see Valade have a huge week this week of practice and have a big preseason game and give the Steelers something to think about. Because, we know how good the starters are, or the top 2 in Harris and Warren. But that third running back, I still would like to see an upgrade. And there's a few positions, when they do this final cut down across the NFL, there's a few positions it wouldn't shock me to see the Steelers bring in a guy or 2.
Right. And I agree. My thought, though, was you did have a Valade. You may not have had a Najee Harris or a Jalen Warren available in those in those goal line situations. I just didn't. I felt like they put him in a position to fail. There was no way he was going to win that. In my opinion,
no way.
Not going up the middle. It's not going to happen.
And he had Kendrick Green blocking for him.
Exactly. I mean, with at least a bigger offensive lineman, he could at least hide. But he couldn't even do that. And so, that was just a lose-lose situation. And I think his stock went down a little bit because of it. Now, I mean, I do. It looked poor. It looked really poor.
When you consider how high everybody was on him after the first game.
Yeah.
But again, the really good run come when he was able to utilize his speed. But even in that game, he averaged under 3 yards a carry on all his other runs in the interior. But again, he's running behind second and third string guys by the time he gets in there in the game. So I would like to see more balance, more contact balance, and more balance when there's nobody around and he just falls over his own feet. But I do value his receiving, though. I mean, he is a handle. he's a load to handle if he gets that ball in the open field.
Yeah.
After catching it, so he'll put a hurting on some linebackers if they're trying to cover him.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, he's going to be he's got a special skill set, and I think that he's going to have a specific, game plan for him, a specific part of the playbook designed for his skill set. He's not a every down back, every situation back at all. I don't even feel comfortable with him, being in there on third downs and his duty is to block. Like I would not, I would not feel comfortable with that.
No, not a good blocker.
He's not a good blocker. He's going to get run over or tackled with the quarterback. And so, I think that he is a specific skill set, and I don't know. I wondered about that. I was like, are the Steelers trying to prove something? Maybe kind of douse things, the expectation of this player by putting him in that situation, going up the middle on goal line. I don't know.
I think Tomlin challenged him. Wanted to see would he be able to put his head down and drive in there, even though that's not his game. And he tried, to his credit, but that interior, I mean, Green was blowing them, missing them blocks so bad. The first person that hit him twice was Green. So, I mean, if your center's getting blown into the backfield, it's hard to run in the interior.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely is. The wide receivers, in my opinion, they did pretty good. One receiver that I was excited to see, especially in the return game, was Calvin Austin III. And boy, did he show up, with a big return, almost all the way, ends up getting tackled around the 25, which would lead to the Pickett touchdown in the seam. But, how impressed are you with Calvin Austin? And does this mean that he bumps maybe Gunnar Olszewski off the roster?
Well, based on what we've seen in the preseason, now again, this is another position they might bring in somebody, at the end of cutdowns, a proven guy. But based on what I'm seeing right now, I see a max of 6 wide receivers, and Gunnar might make it because he's had a strong camp. He's actually catching some balls in the preseason games, something that he hasn't done before. And he could be your backup return guy. In case something, they don't want Austin returning kickoffs and punts because he looks like he's going to be so valuable to the Steelers offense, they don't want to risk injury. So that would open up an avenue for Gunnar to make this team. And I think, again, like I've said all along, that Boykin makes the team as the special teams ace because as a gunner, he's the best in the league. But
for sure.
I like Gunnar as far as his toughness and his effort level. And if he can continue to do what he's done in the preseason, if he can carry that over and catch, 10, 12 passes on the year, and, we know he can do the jet sweeps and back him up as your kick returner and get down on kick coverage, which he's good at. I think he makes the roster.
Yeah. I think there's a high possibility. We know that there's going to be 2 players that definitely will not be making a roster as the Steelers placed Cody White and Hakeem Butler on waive injured today. I thought that Cody White was, I think, he had an all right, a couple of preseasons. I didn't even know he was injured. With same for Hakeem Butler. I know there was a lot of hype about Hakeem Butler coming out of XFL, and his size, his ability that he showcased, but he seemed to have disappeared during training camp and it didn't play in the last preseason game. What are your thoughts on Cody White and Hakeem Butler, and what were your thoughts going into training camp?
Well, I've eaten crow today. I'm not hungry. I've eaten crow because I've had to. I sent my buddy and our colleague Jim Wexel a tweet and told him that I was wrong and he was right. He's great and I'm terrible because I believed in Hakeem Butler, and he said that it was that there was something missing, and I'm like, well, I watched him at the XFL and he started making hands catches and using that size. And I thought he could transition to the NFL doing that because the guy's a freak athlete. But what the injury was, they didn't say why he didn't play Saturday.
Right.
But I think what the injury was, Daniel, is they found out he don't have any dog in him. I mean, you got a chance to make an NFL roster with the greatest franchise in NFL history. And when he's out there, whether it's in practice or in the game, he's so nonchalant. It's just like he plays like a guy who's a 10-year veteran that has the team made. There's no sense of urgency. There's no sense that I'm 6'5" and 230 pounds, and I'm going to dominate you against these second and third string cornerbacks. You don't see it. It's just there's no passion in that guy's game. And I was wrong. I said if he can't beat out Gunnar Olszewski to make this team, to make this roster, then I'm glad I didn't say I'd eat my hat, because then I'd be eating crow in a hat. But hey, when I'm wrong, I'm man enough to admit I was wrong, and I'm totally wrong on Akeem Butler. Now, Cody White, I said all along, he's not an NFL caliber wide receiver. He doesn't have the athleticism, and he doesn't have the nuances of route running and be able to still be successful without elite athleticism. So I said all along he wasn't making this roster. But when it comes to Hakeem Butler, I was wrong, and I admit it.
Yeah. I was excited about Hakeem Butler as well. I wasn't sure if it was going to transition into the NFL game, but it appeared based on, I think, what the Steelers were paying him. They paid him a good chunk of money for being for coming in. And I mean, it wasn't anything like expensive or anything, but it wasn't the minimum. And, I thought, all right, maybe this guy has an opportunity. And, there was a lot of talk, comes in and it just doesn't show up. It don't show up. But, what it does tell me, though, with all these receivers that are that tall, that the Steelers want to be physical, even in the receiving group. Now, we saw Deontay Johnson get physical on the touchdown. He was in on the blocking. What are your thoughts about Deontay Johnson thus far this year?
I've been impressed. I mean, everybody knows that I like guys who try to get yak yards and try to go forward. And when I first seen the block happen, I said, oh my gosh, he was trying to get out of the way and he ran into a defender. I said, that was one of the best accidental blocks I ever saw. But then when you watch it back, that play was blocked beautifully. I mean, if you want a textbook show how to run outside zone, and you just watch how that offensive line worked in unison, how each guy was able to turn, they was able to reach the defender and turn them. I mean, James Daniels got one inside linebacker, and Samalu got the other one. And they made beautiful blocks. And to provide that running lane for Warren, he hit that lane and he was gone. And then, I thought the Johnson was just trying to get out of the way, but he made a nice block. He showed hustle. So I think that Johnson realizes, more so this year than in the past, that he has a role in this team, in this offense, that he's not going to be force-fed the ball 147 targets. He's smart enough to look around the locker room and say, there's a lot of weapons in here, and there's one ball. Now, Deontay Johnson specialty, if you need 18 yards, if you need a completion and a guy to get open, he's your man. So if he catches the ball consistently, and he does that, that's going to be his role. And when you consider you got Pickens, the big play guy, on the other side, who looks like he's becoming a complete receiver, not just a one-trick pony. This preseason, he is a complete receiver, much cleaner footwork, balance, consistent effort. I'm expecting him to have a big year. But you got Pat Freiermuth, you got Harris, you got Warren, you got Washington, you got Connor Hayward. I mean, they've got a plethora of weapons. And so I don't expect anybody to have a monster season, but I expect the offense to be much improved. Does that make sense? I think it's going to be spread out.
Yeah.
where they will be less predictable, and that will make them even tougher to defend. So so far I've been very pleased with Deontay Johnson. Now, if he catches this ball in the regular season, he goes forward, he puts his head down to get that final yard or two to get a first down, I'll be satisfied.
For sure. I mean, you know what you have when you mention all those things, you have no excuses. This is a team that definitely should be on the rise. I mean, when you have the defense that they have and, this offense moving in the direction that they're moving, this is, I think a window is more than creaked. I think it's maybe not completely open. It's not wide open that you can, drive a truck through it. But I think it's open enough that the fans should be excited right now. I think this team is going to be scary good. It was Mason Cole who had said, I think it was after practice, that he felt that training camp was faster than the game against the Bills, that they played slower.
Yeah.
So, that says two things. It says, one, that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to be pretty good, yo. The Bills defense is not, it's nothing to, joke about or anything. And so, and two, that, that iron sharpening iron and good on good is really, really, prevailing at this time. And that I think we're going to have a pretty good team this year. And I'm excited for it. We're going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break. We're going to just take a quick second for those on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Don't go anywhere. It'll be about a 3-second break. For those on the audio side, we'll see you on the other side after a few words from our sponsors. And we're back. Welcome back to the Hangover. I'm here with Shannon White. You mentioned earlier that you had a report or an article that came out on steelcurtainnetwork.com. If you're not checking that out, you need to go out there and check it out. You get all your up-to-date news and coverage on the Pittsburgh Steelers. You don't miss anything there. But what was your article about?
Well, I do the stock report article each week after each game. And I try to, we have Jeff Hartman does a great job on our winners and losers list. And that's always awesome, because to see which players, because it's almost always, we usually are in agreement on which players exceeded expectations and which didn't. And we have our knee-jerk reaction article by Big Brosco. Love that, to get that instant response right after the game, what we were all thinking when we were watching the game, he does a great job. And with my stock report article, I write it after I go back and break the game down. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have all the fancy stuff that some of the guys have. I'm DVRing it, and then I'm slowing it down, slow motion in it, and fast forwarding it, breaking it down, and where you can focus on just one player.
Right.
And, you'll notice things that people ain't talking about when they're putting out mass articles immediately after the game or the next morning. One of the things I noticed, and there's other things, and hopefully everybody will check out the article, Joey Porter Jr. played for the first time in the black and gold.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been super excited because you just do not see a young man with his height and his ridiculously long arms that's playing cornerback. And he matched up on his first series of his NFL career on the second play against Stephon Diggs. Now, Stephon Diggs is a Pro Bowl wide receiver, guys. And he is arguably, in those top 5 best route runners in football. He's right there with Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Deontay Johnson. These guys are hard to cover. And if you ain't careful, they're going to embarrass you and make you look silly. Well, on the second play, if everybody watches, Joey Porter Jr. was right up there pressing him, hands on in his face. And yes, Diggs caught the ball for like 4 yards. But Porter was all over him, and he did nothing that would warrant a flag. Mm-hmm. So if he could do that and hinder even a guy of Diggs' caliber getting a free release off that offensive line, off the line, that is going to bode well for the Steelers defense. Because what people are going to understand, I think the Steelers are going to press a lot more. And it would be crazy not to. Because you go at least 4 edge rushers deep that are excellent pass rushers. You have defensive linemen in Hayward and Ogunjobi and Benton who are excellent. They're quick twitch guys or they're super powerful, and they can rush the passer. If you give these defenders 2 seconds or maybe a little more to get back there, you're going to tear up a lot of quarterbacks. And now if you give them an instant, you're playing 6 yards off, like we've seen in that what they call man coverage, and they're 6 yards off. I can't stand that. That's not man coverage. How many times did they take that outlet or hit a quick slant or something? And that hurt the Steelers' pass rush. Well, this year I think we're going to see a combination of press, and we're going to see that pass rush being turned loose. And remember, every one of these inside linebackers are very physical and excellent blitzers. So I'm just excited about that combination. That could easily be 50-sack season.
Oh, yeah.
And multiple interceptions because you're going to get tips. You're going to get a lot of turnovers for strip sacks. I know we're going to talk about Herbig a little later, so I'm not mentioning that. But I mean, it's a great problem to have. But even though everybody wants to talk about that interception, which the guy just lobbed it to him. I mean, it looked like he was throwing it to Porter.
Yeah.
To me, what was impressive was what the Porter did on that first series. And hopefully people will get a chance to watch it and understand what I'm saying.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And for me, what comes to mind when it comes to Joey Porter's Jr.'s performance is probably it's an old Tomlinism that I haven't heard in a while. But it's just preseason, so it's not completely there, but is as close as you can to football justice as you can get. One of the things that plagued Joey Porter, and maybe the reason why he dropped from the first round, was the fact of a lack of interceptions. Now, those that watched, go into the film room and watch his play and realize that he just didn't get very many opportunities to intercept the ball because quarterbacks were thrown away from him, especially in his final, collegiate year. And for him to, in his first game in Pittsburgh, his dad is in the stands, intercepts the ball, football justice to a certain level. Now, once he does it in the regular season, if he ends up getting one against, Brock Purdy or something, then that would be true football justice. But you mentioned something about the pass rush and the coverage. What that's going to do is it's going to help out probably the room that has the most newest people, and that's going to be the inside linebacker group. I think that the inside linebacker group has done well. We have a question from, and my computer's acting up, but it's from Afton Ford saying, there he goes. What did you think about Mark Robinson this week?
Oh, I've said in the article today that nobody had a spectacular performance out of the 4 in 5, because we got to consider Tanner Muse as well. 5 inside linebackers. Nobody had that spectacular, like, the play the previous week where Quan Alexander got fined, which should not have been a fine, but But this week, everybody did a very workmanlike performance. It was very solid. They fulfilled their roles, their responsibilities. And when they got there, Daniel, something that I've been wanting to see for years, they're physical. I mean, you will see a guy getting ready. It looks like he's getting ready to go down, and Roberts will come out of nowhere and pile into him and help the tackler, take that guy down. Those are little things. You say, well, what's the big deal? How many times have we seen a runner break away from when you think he's tackled and he breaks away? Or a receiver, on a catch. You want to see gang tackling. You want to see that effort. We've had guys for years that act like they don't want to get up off the ground. They don't want to dive into the pile, maybe try to knock the ball loose because they don't want to get their uniform dirty because mommy's going to get mad at them. I guess mommy has to get the grass stains out of their uniform pants because they don't want to play hard. They don't want to get a little blood on their uniform. I want to see these hard-nosed guys who are physical go out there and play the position like the standard, the legacy that has been set. We're seeing that now. We got to see Cole Holcomb, who in the first game, he was only in there a few plays. He was in coverage a lot. This past game, you seen him fill run lanes. You seen him tackle ball carriers. You seen him in coverage make a play. That's what we expected. He was only in there a few plays last week, but people panicked. Mark Robertson, if you watch how they're using him, if you ask him to drop back in zone coverage, that's where he has no experience. He looks a little better this year. He doesn't look like a lost ball in high weeds, but you can tell it's still new to him. But what they're doing, because he's way more athletic than Vince Williams, somebody that everybody wants to compare him to, what they're doing is if that running back comes out of that backfield, he's on him. And if not, he blitzes. And so it's really natural for him. It's what he excels at already while he's learning to do zone coverage.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a big hit when the receiver caught the ball going across the middle, and he made him pay. That's what we're used to, guys. I mean, when did you ever see Devin Bush hit anybody you thought he might have hurt him? I mean, I'm surprised he didn't get up and shake his hand and say, thanks for putting me down soft. Thanks for being so gentle. I mean, I couldn't stand it. So thankfully, you don't have to worry about it no more. But I was impressed. I've been impressed with Mark Robertson's growth in coverage. He's still getting interceptions in practice.
Yeah.
And that shows he's in the right spot or around where he's supposed to be because he's getting interceptions.
For sure. His hit to that receiver over the middle, that reminded me of Debo. That was James Harrison, hitting a Browns player coming across the middle type of, force. Maybe not to the area that Debo hit, but, hitting with authority and with punishment behind it. It was amazing to see. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be, one of the, he's still very raw, as you mentioned. And I think he's going to be a part of the future. And, sometime this year, I think he's going to be, have also a specific games where he's going to be in there more often than not. I'm thinking Cleveland, Baltimore, heavy run games.
I believe he's going to be a part of the rotation this year. I think we're going to see, just like the backup edge guys, I think this defense is going to play so aggressive and so fast, as Mason Cole said, that they're going to rotate and have a true rotation and make sure that these guys can last at that pace for 17 games.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. And I'm excited. And, this reeks of Andy Weidl, the depth that this team has. You look at what the Eagles were able to do, and, and the team that they built with the depth that they had. I feel very, very much like this team has a lot of depth there, especially in the trenches and on the defensive side. Maybe not so much in the cornerback position, but along the line, along the edge, along the middle linebacker group, I think there's some very good depth there. And speaking of the edge and the depth there, Nick Herbig is a guy that is making a name for himself. He's a guy that, you talk about eating crow, that I've been eating crow for a while because I thought he would be better vested for playing the middle linebacker position, off ball linebacker. And, based on his size and length and his agility and athleticism, I wasn't sure if it was going to transition into, the pro, into the NFL, given the fact that I knew he was going to be going up against better tackles and probably bigger tackles that he faced while he was playing in Wisconsin. And man, he has just shown me up and has been havoc. How much time do you think a guy like Nick Herbig gets as far as once the regular season starts? I think he's going to end up number 4 on the depth chart behind Golden and obviously TJ Watt and and Alex Highsmith. Um, do you think that he could potentially have that significant role? And if he does, how many sacks do you think he's going to get this year?
Well, first off, you don't need to eat crow because that was the evaluation of about every professional evaluator
Mm-hmm.
was that he looked like an off-ball linebacker dimensionally, and he has so much talent. He's such a football player. You know he's going to be out there. But now, where's the best spot for him? I thought the same thing. When I was looking at him and evaluating him, I evaluated him to be an off-ball linebacker because I just thought he didn't have the length. Well, we see two things work in his favor. He is incredibly comfortable in Pittsburgh because he knows everybody, because there's so many Wisconsin players, but they also run a very similar system. So he's coming in, and what he's doing is second nature. He's been doing it 4 years. So he's very comfortable on that edge, being an edge rusher. We see that incredible quick twitch, that bend. Daniel, when he come around that edge on that strip sack, he was horizontal to the ground. He put his arm down, his right arm, so he didn't go all the face first.
Yeah.
But he went so low to get under that tackle. That tackle had no chance. Then he exploded up. Now, that's incredible athleticism. That's quick twitch. That's power. That's bend and flexibility. And then he exploded into the quarterback, causing the strip sack. People don't realize he would have had the fumble recovery, but Tanner Muse was closer and jumped on it. But if you notice, the guy Muse was fighting for the ball was Herbig. He don't stop, guys. He's on fire. He plays like his hair is literally on fire, and he's looking for some water. That is something that cannot be coached. It's so easy to block an object that isn't moving. But when you got a guy that's perpetual motion and he never stops, these linemen hate him. So, in my opinion, he's a quick learner. He's already implemented some of Watt's pass rush moves. He's implemented the spin move by Alex Highsmith. He's learning from Marcus Golden. If a guy's a quick learner, he learns from his mistakes, and he's supremely talented, he's playing some this year. Now, it would not shock me to see him pass Golden. Not that Golden is not a good player. Golden's had 3 seasons of 10 sacks or more. He is a proven player, and I'm so glad the Steelers have him. Excellent depth. But Herbig's special, and he's almost unblockable.
Yeah.
I mean, he is actually quicker than Watt. If you watch the release off the line, Herbig is quicker. So, he doesn't have the power Watt has. But I think he'll get bigger as time goes by. But I think he's going to be used much more than people realize. I believe that he can actually get 6 to 7 sacks in a rotational reserve role. Because I think he's still going to be a headache for starting tackle.
How many?
6 or 7.
Oh, wow.
That
would be good.
In a reserve role, because he's still going to be a headache for any tackle every time he's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe that eventually he could be a guy who's very rare, but he could be a hybrid, a guy who can play some edge, a guy who can play off ball, and you won't know where he's coming from, and you can move him around, and he can be like an ultimate weapon. If you watch Micah Parsons, how the Cowboys use him to get his speed and athleticism and his dominant traits out there on the field, I see a lot of similarities in Nick Herbig.
Yeah.
In that, it's easy to play it for him if you know where he's coming from. Herbig can rush from the right side or the left side.
Yeah. You mentioned the strip sack and how he was there to almost recover it. What you have to realize is that he went diving for the quarterback's arm and the ball went forward about 8 to 10 yards. And I saw that. And, I was watching the replay and I saw him on the ground jumping for the ball. And I was like, is that Herbig? Or is that a guy that has a second number as him? Because how did he get there? I had to rewind it and watch it and trace what he did. And the dude is extremely fast. His get up off the ground is quick. I think the Steelers got a steal. This might end up being, one of the better drafts. when it
No
comes
doubt.
down to it.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Did you see the first quarter? See, I've been wanting him to play against first string. And I've been wanting him to get in there. And so they rotated him in, like in that second drive, if I ain't mistaken, against the Bills. And so he was playing against Josh Allen. And they had their starting tackle, Dawkins, who might have been a Pro Bowl alternate, I think. But anyway, he's an accomplished player.
Mm-hmm.
Great height, great length. He's a good pass blocker. Herbig went around him and hit Allen, if you remember, to where Allen threw the ball and kind of went straight down in the ground.
Yeah.
The reason that ball, he threw it like that is because Herbig made contact with his shoulder in the back because he got there. And that was against the starting NFL accomplished tackle. So he's proven it. He's showing us everything that you could want to see from a rookie edge rusher.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think, like I said, I think he's going to end up being one of the steals of the draft. I think he's a guy that he's going to end up being on this team for a while. As long as there's no injuries or anything like that, right? I think he's going to make a name for himself. Yeah.
I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah, but we mentioned depth, and we talked about the inside linebacker, the outside linebacker group. The defensive line has a strong group, and Terrell Austin earlier today made a statement basically saying that they're prepared to lose a guy in the lineman group that is capable of being a starter on Sundays. Now, how many defensive linemen do you think the Steelers are going to keep? And what do you think? Well, first and foremost, what do you think about his statement? And then how many linemen do you think are actually going to stay?
When you told me this before the show, and we was kind of doing some production notes and everything, I was like, I didn't realize Terrell Austin said that. Mm-hmm. I seen an article about it, and I read that, and I didn't pay attention who said it. And because I do agree that there's guys that are going to not make this team that would have been starters for the Steelers last year, and especially 2 years ago. The depth that Khan and Waddle have brought in is so impressive. I got to say this, guys. I love Kevin Colbert, but we all know that in the last decade of his career, after the draft, it was almost like he was on vacation. Nothing happened. Guys, unless there was an injury, no guys were brought in hardly. These guys, Khan is working out guys every day of the week, it seems like. They're constantly trying to turn over stones to find hidden gems. They understand in this modern NFL, as a GM and a front office, you got to constantly be looking to improve your team 365 days a year. Colbert worked probably half the season, if we're being honest, because he was established. He was proven. His legacy was proven, and he did not have that hunger anymore. And that happens sometimes towards the end. We're seeing Khan and him, they're doing it different. And like today, they brought in guys. They're consistently and constantly looking to improve this roster. So now we look at this defensive line. I think when you first told me it was Austin, I'm like, oh, I know who he's talking about. Because to me, Martravius Adams, who has started last year, was a starting nose tackle, is in real danger of not making this roster. And it's because they're playing him in nose tackle, and he is not a natural nose tackle. But you have Cam Hayward, Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, Brendan Fahuku, Armon Watts, and here's the guy that shocks me. The other guy that I think is making it is Isaiah Loudermilk, who if you'd asked me before training camp, I said he's done. But again, it's his third year. Remember, it took Cam Hayward 3 years to be a full-time starter.
Right.
Isaiah Loudermilk, it's like the light bulb went off. Something happened because now he's out there, and if you watch, he's actually making an impact. He's moving guys. He's moving offensive linemen where they don't want to go, and he's not being moved. We're seeing an extra level of effort and intensity. And I believe that the guy who's actually knocking, it's either Armand Watts, Isaiah Loudermilk, or Montravius Adams. And in my opinion, Adams is the guy who's not going to make the roster.
And there's another player you didn't mention is DeMarvin Leal. Where does he fit in?
See, they're trying to use him. They're trying to use him at multiple positions, as a defensive lineman and as an edge.
Right.
Because they're going to keep 4 edges. So when I break it down, I'm like, do I put him at edge? Because they let him come back at about the same weight as last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's either going to have to get heavier and stronger to be a full-time defensive lineman. Because right now he's not quite big enough. And I mean, he's got a lot of talent. To me, he doesn't have the quickness and the speed to play the edge. He can, set the edge really well. So That's what they asked him to do last year, against the Ravens and the Browns and heavy run teams. Mm-hmm. But he has not impressed me this camp or this preseason so far. But I do believe it's because they're asking him to do 2 things. And for him to really excel, he needs to be a full-time defensive lineman and, gain some weight and functional strength. I do think he makes the roster, no doubt. He has a lot of talent. But I just think that we're not going to see the true DeMarvin Leal until they make him more a specified player at a specific position.
Yeah, I think he makes the roster as well. But then the question comes up, like, how many defensive linemen are you keeping? If you're keeping 6, DeMarvin Leal has to bump one of those guys off that you mentioned. And I feel that, Ogunjobi, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, I can almost say that Leal are locks there. So he only leaves you for 2 more. And so if you're only going in with 6.
Well, obviously I'm thinking 7 because I do think that Leal and Watts and Fajuka make it.
Okay.
There's going to be tough decisions. I mean, this year more than in many years, there's going to be tough decisions of how many guys you're going to keep at certain positions. That's why it wouldn't shock me. Let's say they go with 5 wide receivers instead of 6, or or they go
3 tight ends.
Gentry. I like Gentry. He brings value as a blocker, and he's got good hands. He doesn't do anything with it afterwards. But when you look at, they're going to have to make these decisions, and they're going to sit there and say, what's more valuable? Tight end number 4 or defensive lineman number 7? And then they're going to have to make that decision.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think they're going to end up keeping 7 on the squad, and there's going to be a tough decision somewhere else. There might be some surprises, and you also have to figure that we aren't thinking that they're going to be bringing on a couple of players that are going to be brand new to the team come 53 cut down. Somebody's going to go, cut some surprise players or some players in need that, we weren't, anticipating. And the Steelers are going to pick up a couple of players, and that's going to equal to even more players having to be cut from the team. So it's a good problem to have. It definitely is.
You don't want to be one of those last 5 to make it.
Yeah.
Because you see that we've watched Hard Knocks, and they're like, okay, here's the bottom 5, and who we going to take? And they make it, and then there's that final cut down, and then 2 of them guys that made it originally get released, get waived. So, you don't want to be on that bottom part.
Yeah, no, for sure. You definitely don't. I will say defensively, the only part that may have been a downside to the Buffalo Bills game was guarding the tight end. Dalton Kincaid had himself a game. He was able to he had several catches, several yards after catch. Does that concern you that a tight end, which has been kind of the Achilles heel for the defense for a while, going back to Rob Gronkowski, does that concern you that it kind of showed up in this game?
No, one time they basically went all out heavy blitz package
Mm-hmm.
and left Cole Holcomb in the middle of the field 1-on-1 against Kincaid. And with the quarterback, if that pass rush don't get there under 2 seconds, they had a couple of free guys, but that guy was able to get rid of that ball quickly and hit Kincaid in stride. And then, so a couple of his catches was due to matchups
Mm-hmm.
because the Steelers defense tried something. It's preseason. They went ultra aggressive. I guess Matt Barkley, which, I would have done the same thing. Not concerned at all. I believe the Steelers last year, their inside linebackers, the middle of the field was open.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't make anybody pay for catching the ball either. It's one thing to give up catches, but they weren't physical at all. Nobody was scared to go across the middle. It's going to be different this year.
Yeah.
And they will disguise them coverages and have more variety of coverages when it's regular season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is still vanilla. You don't want to you don't want to, show off too much of your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially at this point. But our final topic, and I wanted to get your opinion on that, in my opinion, is no question, and that is quarterback Kenny Pickett. If we look at his stats for the entire preseason thus far, he's 9 for 11, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 149.1 passer rating. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could ask for anything better, to be honest with you. No. You can only play who's in front of you, and you can only participate in the game that you're participating in. And just because it's preseason, and he's going up against some vanilla defenses or whatever the case may be, but if he was going to be a horrible quarterback, we would have seen some struggles with those things. If you have a quarterback that you expect to be successful, these are the numbers you would expect to see in preseason. But Josh Allen is a quarterback that is one of the top tier QBs, and I don't think his stats compare to Kenny Pickett at this point. What are your thoughts on KP8 thus far?
He's exceeded all expectations. I mean, I was going to ask you earlier, and the audience as well. If you look at all the teams in the AFC, besides the ones that are already considered contenders, who is the surging team in the AFC? Who's the team that is showing the most potential? And the teams were not one to play this year. And I think it's the Steelers. And all these guys, I've been watching, trying to catch as much preseason action as possible. And none of these other quarterbacks are looking, even the guys that are having strong camps and strong preseasons, look as good as Kenny Pickett does. And that's all that matters. He's in control, he's comfortable, and he's improved. And that offseason of hard work is paying off. So, we couldn't ask for more than what he's given us already.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you just look at mainstream media and the talking heads, early on in this offseason, Steelers were predicted to be the 4th team in the AFC North by many. And a lot of the analysts and beat writers were saying, Kenny Pickett or the Steelers are number 4 because Kenny Pickett is the 4th best quarterback in the division. And then you start, training camp comes, there's some buzz that starts getting down. And then now you start hearing mainstream media say, hey, this is my surprise team. This is my dark horse team. And I guarantee you by like week 2 of the regular season, this is going to be their favorite team. So if you're betting, I would go bet the over on 8.5 wins this year. Yep. No doubt. Well, Shannon, that's going to do it for us. Let everybody know what's the next podcast that you're going to be on.
Well, Wednesday night at 8:30, me and Brother Tate, Big G, will be doing the Pump Your Brakes podcast, and I'm sure we'll have some more interesting news and kind of do a little preview of the Falcons game the next night. So definitely everybody tune in and look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, and if you go check out Steel Curtain Network on the audio only side, Friday, I'll be having a breakdown, a knee jerk reaction, so to speak, on my State of the Steelers podcast that airs out at noon on the audio side only.
And hopefully it's good news.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too. With that being said, we're outies. Let us send us out there, Shannon.